check. Okay. Oh, I forgot to. Go all the way to here. I'll let that come up first. Let me start. This will cover part of the screen. It's kind of a reflection coming in here. Okay, so I think we can officially start. So we're under a constraint of rigid bodies, and meaning that if there's a rigid body and there's any spot A, and there's any other spot B, any spots on there, the distance remains fixed. And as a result, what the book did is they did this, and then they did this, and then they said if we look here at this one, if we're focused in on A, then this position of B relative to A, and then it starts working in from there. And so what we end up with through all that, let me roll down. Well, I guess I can roll up first. Well, we end up, if there's a object that's spinning, like this thing here, you don't see the rest of it, but it's this. So any point on that spinning object, and the reason we're focusing on the spinning object right now is that if we really think about it, the rigid body will have two motions. He's focusing on the spinning object right now because the motion that A is, that B has if you're sitting on A, only appears to be rotation. So we're taking care of the rotation. In a bit, we'll take care of the translation. But right now, we're looking at it from this perspective. Then he goes in and he says the acceleration, which actually, if you take the derivative of this is what you get about this little thing stuck in there. That's the mouse part. So you get, and these are all vectors, and it turns out that what he does, and this is you could show that this part always equals to that part. Some dynamics books only stay here. This one moves on to here. I can see the argument in either one. I don't really know. But what this is this is the v squared over r. And so, so we have this motion. And now let's spin through it, the sections. Let's go through the sections. Look at all this, and then we'll go on to the, so initially he's working off of this. So let's go through and look at the problems. And to do that, you have to step it forward, I think. Okay, so he has, here's a, I tell you what, let me just try to see if I can get rid of that. Okay, so here's a cord, a cord pulling a pulley, on a wheel, and it says the core's wrapped around the wheel to initially at rest, which is initially at rest when theta is equal to 0. This means if it's initially at rest, we like this new, here, let me move this backwards. We like this new variable. Okay, now in this he's implying that we only have this rotation. You know the vector's coming towards you, but this is where this is the dot. It's like the velocity, but now it's in radians per second instead of feet per second. If it was initially at rest, that occurs. If a force is applied to the cord, given the acceleration applied to the cord and gives it, that's a weird wording, if a force is applied to the cord and gives it an acceleration of that, of 4t, sorry, where t is in seconds, determined as a function of time the angular velocity of the wheel and the angular position. You know what, we'll just do A, and we'll look at whether we want to do B in a minute. So this wheel is this far out, and okay, so let's step back one. Okay, if you wanted to know the velocity at this point, and say this is going 5, I'm just making stuff up, radians per second, then the velocity of that point is equal to 5 radians per second times 0.2 meters. I could have used another term. How about I make it, since I'm making it up, I'll make it 10. And that gives you 2 meters per second for this end point. Well, it turns out if r remains fixed, you do a derivative out of this and you get this. So, if you want to know, hang on, if you want to know the alpha, this remains fixed at the point 2. So, if this is 4t equal to alpha, and that's 0.2, immediately you have alpha is equal to 4t divided by 0.2. I'm not even going to figure out that number. But then the key is, he wants to know, determine as a function of time the angular velocity. Okay, so remember, we had this a long time back. Not g, but acceleration constant. Constant acceleration. T over that squared. The question is it constant? The answer is no, it's not. So we can't use this. We could, if he said acceleration is equal to 4, and then alpha would be equal to something, it would be fixed. So what do? We go now to, back, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, I don't know how long ago it was, we had this. Well, we now have that. And then, depending on the way you look at it, you could have this, but you also could have that. So the reason I write them both down is because what you saw before, feet per second, radians per second. Feet per second squared, radians per second, and radians per second squared. But the individual equations themselves look the same. If I just change the S for theta and V for omega, it's the same thing. If I change the V to omega and A to alpha, it's the same thing. If I wanted to, and if it was just spinning like this, I could just multiply everything times R, and that's what I would get. In other words, not everything. Everything on the right side. R. V is equal to omega R. A is equal to alpha R. But the key is they all sit and look the same. Okay, now that you have that, you have this one, and you can stick it in there and do this, the omega integral, and then put the alpha, which is, I'm not even gonna, I know I should figure it out, but I'm not going to, and do a dt. This is the integral that could be done if we say t equals 0, then we'll say omega at t equals 0, and we'll say omega at t and t. So all we need to do is perform this integration, which is not that hard, but I just don't even feel like dividing 4 by 0.2. But you'll end up with a t squared over 2 with those extra 2 terms. Putting in t is equal to 0 is a pretty easy deal. And then leaving the t there, this, he said, it started initially at rest, meaning that this term is a 0, and you just carry out the integration. Now, since this is already done, I'll start rolling it forward. I keep writing on that desk by accident. They keep putting it in the wrong place. So if you roll it forward, well, okay, so there's part A. Oh yeah, that's what I did. I did part A. So, but I didn't finish it. So first thing he does, I've got stuff written in the way. Okay, so he went ahead and took his 4, and so that's what 4 over 0.2. 0.2 is just 1/5, so that'll give you 20. Then he has to, okay, so he determined that. So we determined that in radians per second squared. Then you got to go down, and I don't know how his integrations will look. His typeset's kind of interesting though. So alpha is equal to something right here, and it's 20t. Well, that's what that is, 20t. And then you integrate it, and you get 10t squared. But he just wanted, it wasn't at a specific time. Okay. I don't know why I thought it was at a specific time, but that's okay. So then the part B, which I didn't even look at, using the result of the angular can be found, since the equation we have, we just do the one more integration, and that's it. We cannot use the equation for constant angular since alpha is a function of time. So we said that a second ago. And a similar thing happens here. Let's see. This one though, this one's kind of nice because it starts to make you look at the thing from a perspective that you probably have already seen before or have knowledge of, and that is when you go out on your bicycle, you'll notice your front thing where your pedals are. So there's your pedals. And then it goes down to a chain back here. And and then you got a gear that a sprocket back here that you can change that to the point where I don't know how many sprockets. So you can change gears and the chain will jump. There's a derailleur usually that helps tension this. But anyway, I didn't draw that. So this is a similar concept. You know, one turn here for this one is multiple turns back here because it's a smaller diameter. And so the key is you just look at it from, sorry about that, but you look at it, okay, I got too much in the way. You look at it from the perspective of whatever this point is, velocity is equal to omega r. For this, okay, I should say A, and A. And then out here, the velocity, this chain itself doesn't break, we hope, and it doesn't stretch. So, wait, that was A, so this would be. But it turns out, if the velocity here is like 5 feet per second, or, okay, it's in meters, so say it's 5 meters per second, then there's no real way that this part of the chain, every part of the chain has to move the same speed. So the chain and a gear have that same kind of concept. It matches the velocity, but the radius is the radius. Yeah, the R's don't necessarily match. They could, but they don't. And so what you end up with is it. So let's read the problem. It's shown the motor connected to begins to rotate from rest at a constant. Oh, we got a constant angular. So first of all, if it starts from rest, I'm gonna write this equation first. I'm not sure that I'm gonna need it. Oh, that should be alpha t squared over 2. So it starts from rest, but this is going to be for A, so that's going to be 2. So I'll just sort of swipe that out. Starts from rest. Okay. Determine the magnitude of the velocity and acceleration of a point P. Where is P? Oh, right in here. On the wheel after the pulley has turned 2 revolutions. Okay. Which pulley? After the pulley. Which one of these is the pulley? Does not slip on the pulley in the wheel. Okay. So which one do you think the pulley is? Motor begins to rotate. Okay. If the pulley A, okay, so this is the pulley. I mean, I wouldn't think either one would be, but after the pulley has turned 2 revolutions. So he has this, he has that. Let's assume that we're measuring from 0, so we get this equals just t squared, if I got that right. And so if I want it to do 2 revolutions, well, 1 revolution is 2 pi, so 2 revolutions is 2 pi, and so that would be t squared. So this is after it went through 2 revolutions. That's what t would be, square root of 4 pi. And so it went through 2 revolutions there. The next thing is, he wants to know what point, oh, he wants to know the velocity and the acceleration of point P. So here's what I can do. I'll use this area and then go back. I'm going to have to rewrite what I just wrote. Here, I'll do it this way. And then I'll do this. Because I'm not going to write in the middle of this. There's 2 ways I could do this. But I think I'm going to just, one is, you could use the R ratios to translate all the information down to here, or you can wait until you get down to here. I don't know which one to do. Here, we'll do it this way. So what I'll do, alpha B is equal to, I got that written wrong. Acceleration A is equal to alpha A, RA. And acceleration of B is equal to alpha B, RB. So if it turns out that a point here has the same velocity as any point on it, then, and it remains that the case, then so does the acceleration. So in other words, alpha of any point on A times RA is equal to alpha of any point on this B out here, that is, RB, yeah, I ate RB yesterday. So let's see, you go through here, and you're mostly interested in now the alpha B, because I'm going to just go ahead and move the problem onto B. Is equal to alpha A. I'll take this, RA over RB. What is RA? Is that already? Oh yeah, okay, there's a little arrow right here. Okay, so 0.15 over. That one's easy to, but I could also, here I'll do it this way. I could also write that, or this. So in other words, if this one's spinning really, really, really fast, in other words, this will spin really, really fast, and this one will spin slower. So if that one were, say, 10, then this number should reduce that 10 down to something smaller. And I don't know what 0.15 over 4 is, since, you know, 0.375? That doesn't sound right, but maybe it is. So that number is that number. So in fact, from the upper number, we found out, from the upper analysis, we found that's how far in time it takes that we're interested in. From the lower number, we're going to find out that, okay, so I take the 2 that was occurring back here, and I multiply it times that, and I get alpha b equaling 2.75. Now all I do is since it's constant now, I can say omega b is equal to omega b initial plus alpha b times time. The same thing that occurred, v is equal to v naught plus acceleration constant t. So I should say that. So I'm mimicking that equation we had before. And then I'm going to mimic the next one, which is v is equal to omega b naught plus, and I don't think I need it, but omega b naught t plus alpha b constant t squared over 2. Now here I'm mimicking s is equal to s naught plus v naught t plus acceleration constant t squared over 2. I'm replacing. Sounds like somebody has a drill.
Vacuum maybe?
It's not me going insane. There's somebody in the hallway with a drill. Okay, that's okay. We would rather do that than have something break, or maybe something already broke. So you just mimic that. If the thing started from rest before, and I'm assuming it did somewhere in the statement because I did that, then so does B. And he wanted to know the velocity and the acceleration. Well, the acceleration is just that. Oh, well, no, wait a minute. Okay. Let's be realistic here. Velocity is equal to omega cross r. Acceleration is equal to alpha cross r plus omega cross r, or the way he has written it, omega squared r, where this is the vector. So let's do it this way. Omega cross r, what's the velocity of that point? Okay, now here we're just looking at the wheel. The wheel is spinning this way, meaning the vector goes into the board. If the vector goes into the board and the r at this point P goes this direction, we take a vector that goes into the board, we cross it with that vector, which means that the velocity looks like that. You already knew that, but that's what the cross product does. So the omega, we don't know the omega yet because, and actually we don't need this equation right here. I wrote it without even thinking, but we don't need it. But the omega, since it started from 0, is 0.75 times the square root of 4 pi, unless I made a mistake. Did I make a mistake so far or not? I don't know. So you take that, you multiply times 0.4, so you take omega b times 0.4, and that'll give you the value of that velocity. The other one you got to be very careful about. Okay, alpha cross r. Okay, so here we're going to assume the same thing. Alpha cross r. Did he say it was accelerated? It had to be accelerated because it started from 0. Constant angular acceleration. So if you start it, he's got to start this way. So that means your alpha is going this way. The vector goes in the board. Your r still sits right here. So your vector going into the board, cross it with this vector, this r. You'll have a vector going this way. That is a value of alpha r, or 0.75 times 0.4. Now, if you do omega r, that's nothing more than the velocity. If you take that velocity, a vector this direction, and you cross it with omega, now you have to remember, omega goes into the board. So, it's kind of hard to figure this out, but if you cross these two, you get a vector pointing back in the opposite direction of r. So instead of having this that way, I'll draw this, that this is omega squared r, or whatever that is squared, and okay, so there's a square root there, and you're going to square it, and then times r, which is 4. 0.4, sorry. And so, now that we got all that, I did not find the numbers just because I didn't want to. I did find one number, which was that 0.75. So if I get rid of all the writing and then roll down, wait a minute. Okay, he had a picture there. And I don't know what that is in the background, but anyway, there's your picture. So he says that, omega A. What? I didn't calculate it. So he found the number. I just left it as 2 times 2 pi. He found it as the 12. So I'm sorry, I left this all by itself. I didn't do anything with it. Now he went a different route in which he used this equation. I actually went back and found the time and then inserted it in there. I never found omega A. I went straight to B. And then I did all my stuff off of B. So what he did is he took the A, and I have a contention there that he did not. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So he found his alpha B, which we did find that. And I was just lazy enough that, if you want to go and calculate, let's just do that now. 0.7, okay, 4 pi. Let's see. So if we go back and take my 4 times pi, and then take the square root of it times 0.75, 2.659. So I got the same number here. So if you look back here, that's the omega B. I got that by finding T and sticking back in there. And then, so I got that one, I got that one. So once you get these two, I just didn't calculate that. Then once you get to these two, that's actually the rotational, radians per second. now you've got to, okay, so he did this. He said velocity at point P and acceleration tangential at point P going in the same direction. The other one's going this way. Or actually, this label probably goes with that. This velocity goes with this. And so you get a vector like that. You get the velocity vector going straight to the left. You get an acceleration vector which partially goes this way. This is the centrifugal part. That's the tangential part. And then the wave comes up with those is just puts them in there, omega r, I didn't calculate, alpha r, omega squared r, and you get that. But I went back to use, that's what these equations come from. And so those are the equations there. Rotation, but then he has a whole video where he does the whole thing. Why did I do that? I should have just gone and worked a problem out of the back. Okay, the fundamental problems have videos, so okay. Okay, the regular problems. Let's find one with a funny gear train. Okay, there's a pulley spinning something, a refrigerator or something. Gears. Let me just start making a few comments as we go about each one. So I don't think I've put this problem set together yet. So first of all, did I make sense? I mean, if I don't make sense, you're supposed to stop me. So in this gear, there's a certain line here. It's funny, it's not exactly here, and it's not exactly at the end. There's a certain line down the middle through here, not exactly at the middle. It depends on the way the teeth are built, which that actually comes in the other course, but I'm not sure whether it's fundamentals or the other one. I can't remember. So anyway, the two teeth are there. So you notice there's a line here, and he has a line. When I say a line, an arc, that's a circle. It's 100 and 175. So this velocity, okay, it's spinning this way. So the velocity here will be the same whether it's on A or B. So the velocity will be the same, and so you look at it like this. It's either omega, this is B, omega B, RB, or omega A, RA. So the velocity is the same. The magnitude of this velocity is the same. On the left is sitting on this wheel, and the right is sitting on that wheel. And so that's what you're doing. You're using the R ratios. If these were the same radiuses, then I'm not sure what you would be doing, because you wouldn't be decreasing or increasing the speed, or decreasing or increasing the torque. So there's no particular, when you're on a bicycle and you're having trouble getting up a hill, you want to drop that down in your gear, depending on the way you look at it, in order to be able to get up the hill, but you're not going to go very fast. And then if you're on flat, you can pick up that thing, because, as a human, you really can't produce an infinite amount of force. As a matter of fact, nothing can. So you have to put your gear ratio so you can actually make progress. So there's a torque relationship, and there's a speed relationship. So this is in, I'm just going to say foot-pounds, and this will be radians per second. So these are, interesting, and if you look at these, torque times omega is in foot-pounds per second, which is a unit of I guess you could turn it into horsepower. So it's in some sort of thing of power. Now, if you're going really, really fast in the same torque, it doesn't work. So if you drop your speed, so if you take your speed and say you had no losses and you put something into a unit and you were dropping the speed, you could increase your torque to offset that. So, and I don't know that he talks about that. Right now we're just talking about, so the key is speed and torque kind of inversely related to that. So that's the only thing that you have here is, I don't know what we got there, vacuum cleaner. So another gear, pulley, which behaves just like a gear, except the two spinning parts aren't touching. And you have this. You have these gears that can change a rotation along this axis to a rotation along that axis. And then he obviously has another gear because he wants to reduce it down here. And the same picture. Yeah, I think it's the same picture. Here somebody's trying to hypnotize us. So there's another gear box. Here I guess he's just looking for the velocity at the tip of the propeller maybe. Oh, and you got a gear. Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't see the A and the B, two gears there. Same thing. And there you got a multiple gear ratio. If you ever want to see, let's see, unrelated, HLER, bike. Okay, I knew I didn't know how to spell it, but I don't know if you've ever seen any of these. Let me see if I can, here's a video. Oh, roll off versus, okay, so if you look, images, let's look at that one. Oh, I wanted to see the whole image. Okay, so if you look at this thing, so this is an internal hub on a bike. So if you don't like the back gear things with all those different things with a derailleur, like I'm going to get one of these sometime soon when I retire and start riding every day, like Forrest Gump goes across America running, I'm going to ride. So the beauty of this is there's one chain, and this is small, much smaller than the picture, by the way. But what it has, you can buy these, I think, okay, I may be wrong, but I think it's a 14 gear. And so internal to this, there's a little, you can see that goes up to your thing up here, that are up the other way, so you can switch gears, and all the gear shifting happens in here. The beauty is, or the problem, depending on the way you look at it, most of the time you really don't want to be putting torque on it to shift, and you can immediately shift. In a bike, you have to kind of roll it so that chain will slowly get up on there. So during that period, it's very hard to shift gears if you're putting power to stuff, and I've been doing that where I go up a hill and then you have to let off just a little bit so you don't put too much strain. This actually you can get away with, stop for a half second, shift, and then go on. And so I don't know what all of it. Oh, here's the showdown. Okay, so let's see what the showdown's all about. Here we go. Make it full screen.
As you guys know, I am a big fan of gearbox drivetrains.
I didn't.
Almost all of my journeys
are
which is the ultimate bicycle gearbox. I am internet's most thorough analysis of these bicycle gearbox systems. But did you expect anything less?
So they started showing it about right there.
I am going to find out once and for all.
So there's all your gears. And then it's quite a complex mechanism.
I am going to focus on the 18-speed version of the pinion gearbox for this.
Okay, now there's other ones that are, okay, I guess that's, I don't know if that's the brand name. Both of them are made in Germany. But the gear, it seems weird to me because, first of all, it's hard to retrofit a bike for this versus the other one, very easy to retrofit it because it's a hub. On this one, the gear shifting happens up here at the front.
Comparison. But it's worth noting that you can get them in 6, 9, and 12-speed versions as well.
Although
Number 1,
I
gear range.
don't know that I would.
Your bike's gear range determines the
both.
speeds at which you can pedal your bike. Gear range gives us an idea.
So here
Roll-off
he's
has a
talking
gear
about,
range of 520.
Okay, so I think that's the percent change. In other words, if you know, if you put them in here like this to this, think about say, I'm just making this up, say that's 1 unit, this would be 5.26 units. So if you consider that, so it'd be as if you could switch from a 1, I mean, you can go measure it on your bicycle by just measuring those radiuses. And I think the number you get out of this is larger than the number you get out of the bicycle. And let's see, it gets on some nice pictures of people. Okay, cycling speed at the lowest and highest.
Gearbox with its extra 21% gear range provides 21%.
Okay. So it looks like the Pinion gives you a higher range, 21% gear range, 21. Anyway, so it says you can get up to 54 kilometers per hour at 100 RPMs. I'm assuming the 100 RPMs is this.
% more top end speed, so you can still pedal right up to 54 kilometers
However,
per hour. Number 2,
so this
gear
is
steps.
if you want.
The Pinion gearbox and roll-off hub have even gear steps of 11.5% and 13.6%.
Anyway.
The best way to understand what these numbers mean, different number of engagement points depending on the gear selection.
Anyway, so there's a lot of interesting things out there. I didn't mean to distract us too much. I guess you could make square gears, but I don't think I would want to do that. But what you would do is you'd get a weird, because your radiuses would change constantly. So in other words, if it's sitting in this orientation, it would be like this to that. But in a minute, this one becomes the longer one, and this rolls down, and this one rolls down, and then the radius changes from the longer radius on the right to the longer radius on the left. So that would be interesting to see. If you had a constant speed here, you would have a speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down on one of them. That would be bizarre. But you could do it if you wanted to. Or probably better yet, it's probably better to make it elliptical. So all these are pretty much straightforward. Let's see. Let me kind of get down here. I don't think we'll cover this one. The absolute is if you generate an equation for it. And I think we'll skip that section and then go to relative motion. And what we'll do is pick up, this is where all the action starts happening in here. Because you have something spinning, you got a couple things you can do. If you want linear motion, like if you get a 3D printer, if you notice the printer head sits here, it moves either back or forth in this plane to cover it, the printing section, and then it starts moving up or it moves down, depending on which way you want. So you actually have XYZ movement, but it turns out the way to do that is use like an Acme screw and or a ball and driver screw, and use a servo motor to take rotational to move it into linear. You're doing that somehow. You're either having at least 3 motors to drive it, sometimes more depending on the weight. So you might want to take this, if you want something really refined, you might want to take the rotational down and gear it in order to gear it down. Or you have another possibility, and that is you don't want this. I mean, this is an easy technically this is easy. When you get into things that are repeated, and you need a particular pattern, this becomes where the difficulty comes in. It's not rocket science to do a 3D printer. As a matter of fact, I've seen people build them. They're not that hard to build. It just takes time. That's the problem with a lot of stuff. So with it, and I don't know, I guess we'll just stop here and we'll pick up next time with this. And so I'll try to get the problem sets for the Saturday after next, or the Sunday after next now, set up. And we'll just go at it like that. I hope I said something of value here, but if I didn't, then I don't know. I tried to. Let's see. So are there any questions of any kind? Okay. If you do, just let me know. If not, that's okay too. I still just go and talk.